Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here, and I'm continuing to look at Cirque du Freak, Volume 3 by Darren Shan, which is also the name of the protagonist because it's kind of weird, art by Takahiro Arai. I've noticed in my manga reviews I've kind of unfortunately been like hitting the 20-minute mark, so let's see if I can get the magic back and get back to the 10-minute mark. Be gone, tangents! Alright, so why am I reviewing Volume 3? Usually if I review a book, it's because I think it's good enough, even if like I reviewed the previous volume, that there's something new to say about it, and because I'm saying this is worth you actually picking up and checking out. So, Cirque du Freak, my criticism of Volume 2 was the names are so stupid. I couldn't believe how stupid the names are. It's very simple, kind of like, I think it was a teenage young adult novel series from year 2000. It feels kind of 2000-y, but it has the simple, straightforward ingredients of a fun adventure story. And it does some things right that I'm always talking about, meaning that it's a good little illustration of like just good old boys' adventure stories. So, neato thing number one is romance. And it's actually a romance that kind of upsets the traditional norms a little bit, because Darren runs into Debbie Hemlock. Her name is Debbie Hemlock, and she's a very assertive girl. And so, that's kind of like the inverse. Normally the guy pursues the girl. This time, Debbie is the one who's kind of like helping Darren figure out what he's supposed to do because he's being a bit shy. They also lampshade like the dumb names. Like, I hate the name Hemlock. Imagine being named after a poisonous plant. It's not that bad. I kind of like it. Shows what kind of taste you have. So she's roasting him because it's okay to make fun of your protagonist. It's okay for them to be a little confused or not quite have it all put together as part of their journey. And I also just thought it was kind of interesting that there's no real indication of who's saying what. You would have to put that together. So actually, someone who wasn't that used to comics might have a hard time putting two and two together, and that's okay because kind of comics teach you how to read comics. Now, this entire exchange is excellent. It's just a great little teenage romance exchange. So I just kind of want to read it to you. So they arrive at her home. She hints that she would like to see a movie. And then she kind of waits at the door and taps her shoes and then says, well, aren't you going to ask? Ask what? Duh. Ask me to go to a movie. But you just said, Darren, and she shrugs. Darren, girls never ask boys out. They don't? You're clueless, aren't you? And so then he just kind of like sweats it out. Just ask me if I want to go to the movies, okay? Okay, here goes. Debbie, will you come to the movies with me? I'll think about it. What? She just walks in and says, I'm home. And Darren says, girls, what a pain in the neck. This is so primal. This is so connected with like a lot of young people's experience. And it's funny. It's a great setup and punchline. So, romance has to be rooted in the way certain kinds of people talk. So, like, not every girl is super direct like Rachel. Not every guy is sort of shy and indirect like Darren. But if that is their personality types, then the way you build a romance is it's all about like kind of figuring out another person is what romance is. Like, you like them, they look cute, okay, but the actual romance is in coming to understand how the other person thinks. So what this is this is a little exchange where Rachel has a very romantic view. She wants a guy to be assertive and ask her out. So she's prompting Darren to think through what he's got to do if he actually likes her. In the meantime, there's also this fun little, Mr. Crepsley's a secretive vampire. What mysterious stuff is he up to? So Darren and his friend, I think it's Evra. They have such weird names. Yeah, Evra. Evra the snake boy. They are tailing Mr. Crepsley because they think he might be up to something, and he reveals that there are two vampire factions, the vampires and the vampanés. I had a dyslexic moment. I thought it was vampanzy. But the vampanés believe that killing human beings is sort of like a noble part of being a vampire. And the vampires kind of have an ethical dilemma where they don't want to kill humans. So this has, of course, led to a war, and the war has been called to a truce because they were killing too many of each other and the humans were outnumbering them. Okay, kind of cool little political situation. And the reason I marked this is I thought about combining these into one video, but it had been too long. Actually, I've got it right here. So, Rat Queens. I read this, and both Rat Queens and Cirque de Freak, have a moment where moral relativism is discussed explicitly. And in Rat Queens, what was annoying about it is the moral relativism feels like the author talking to me. And in this book, the moral relativism makes sense because it is Crepsley's worldview being contrasted with Darren Shawn's worldview. Crepsley is a moral relativist because he's older, he's kind of wizened, he's seen it all, and Darren Shawn is young and idealistic, and this has actually caused him pain because he had scruples that didn't really have any basis in reality. So even though I hate moral relativism, because it's put into the context of two characters who are contrasts to one another, this doesn't annoy me or take me out of the story. It makes sense for a wizened old vampire to have kind of a bit more of a jaded worldview. So he says, to us, the Vampires are more like misguided cousins. Good and evil change according to the time, situation, and observer, Darren. It's how soldiers who murder others in battle come to be called heroes. The Vampires are only killing according to their beliefs and lives. So that is moral relativism. And it's kind of tragic because that's in contrast to Mr. Crepsley's own behavior. Mr. Crepsley is very concerned with protecting life and preserving life, even if it would be easier for him to hunt down human beings. So it's almost like his view of the world is a little out of whack with his own behavior. But Darren is also kind of too young, naive, and idealistic, which gets him into trouble. So it's great. It's great storytelling. Then Darren is also making mistakes which almost make me annoyed at how dumb he is, but it's sort of like the author knows how to balance that. So the author balances Darren making dumb mistakes with Darren doing something good to make up for his dumb mistakes, or there might be a reason why Darren was kind of dumb. So it was kind of dumb for Darren to be mistrusting Crepsley after Crepsley has done so much to earn his trust, but if people seem to be killing by vampires and your vampire mentor is disappearing mysteriously, it is kind of logical for you to wonder about that and wonder if he's behind. Oh, sorry. Spoiler warning, by the way. I've got to remember to do my spoiler warnings at the beginning. Yeah, go read this book, okay? Because now we're going to be getting into more serious spoiler territory. So Darren runs into the evil Vampires, and what it kind of shows is that Darren is starting to trust Crepsley. This is kind of moving to Crepsley, and Darren is thrust into like a really nasty situation that he's got to work his way out of. And Darren is weak. He doesn't like instantly beat all the villains because he's super duper cool. He's not that good at fighting vampires, and he is an assistant. He is a young person who's learning how to kick butt, and he's not good at doing it yet. So it leads up to this really neat situation where he and Evra are trapped underground. Crepsley can't get to them. So it's neat because it's a setup for a cool little mysterious twisteroo, and it gives you all the clues you need to figure out the twisteroo. So if you don't figure out the twisteroo, it's cool because it surprises you. If you do figure out the twisteroo, it's cool because you feel great because you saw the clues and you figured it out. But thematically, it's great because the whole discussion he has with the Vampires is about whether he can trust Crepsley. Has Crepsley used him as part of a pawn in his game against the Vampires, or does Crepsley actually care about what happens to Darren Shawn? Which is great because it continues the theme from the previous book. Darren is worried about becoming a vampire. He's worried about becoming an immoral person. That's why he doesn't trust Crepsley. This is all about testing his trust and testing whether Crepsley is the good man he seems to be and claims to be. And then there is this moral quandary where is Darren telling the truth? Should I spoil it? Yeah. So you've been spoiler warning. Go get this book. So Darren says, I will trade you Evra for Debbie. Because Evra is a snake boy, it's like he's poisonous to vampires. So the Vampires can't kill Evra. He can't drink the blood of another vampire. So the trade is spare my friend, don't kill my friend, and I will give you Debbie because she's just a human. Ooh. So this is where I kind of saw the twisteroo coming, but like a kid might be worried, oh no, does this mean that Darren's going evil? Oh no, please don't kill Debbie, because we've already come to like her based on what a strong impression she's made, based on what an observant and kind of sweet and fun person she's been, right? We don't need an in-depth character study of Debbie to know that she's an interesting person, a fun person, a very bright young girl, and we don't want her to get murdered by the evil vampire, right? This is just such basic storytelling stuff. Bad guys and good guys. And I really like the tension of it, where he kind of like has to explain to the Vampires why he has no reason to lie to him, why this is his last option, and why it's his last-ditch gambit. And then, surprise, surprise, it was all planned to trap the Vampires. That Crepsley was in on it the whole time. So this fight scene is dope. It's everything that a Dragon Ball Z fight isn't. I just did a review of Dragon Ball Z where I said, personally, I just don't like Dragon Ball Z, even though I massively, massively respect Akira Toriyama and the franchise. So this is an example of the opposite of a Dragon Ball Z fight, where a fight can have one punch or like one sword slash in it, and it'll be more interesting than a fight with a billion sword slashes in it, as long as I understand what's going on. So your fight can have a billion sword slashes and super duper, faster than the speed of light characters, but I need to understand what's happening. I don't understand what, Dragon Ball million fight punches are. I do understand this. So out comes Mr. Krebsley, and then Darren even sets it up. I've seen movies. Creatures of the darkness would trade foul insults as a tense, close battle played out over long minutes. And then it turns out that the fight lasts 2 seconds, but takes up 3 dope pages. And I understand what's going on. Krebsley pulls out the knife. He throws the knife into the Vampanese's shoulder to distract him. He gets low and charges forward. He dodges underneath a knife from the Vampanese. He gets a knife hand strike ready, gets in close, winds it up, and then puts a knife hand straight through the Vampanese. So 1 hit, 2 seconds, really 1, 2, 3 pages until the payoff. It's dope. And it's a 2-page spread. That is so cool. I know exactly what happened. I can logically put together every step of the fight. Beautiful. And then there's even this dope thing where the Vampanese creeps up to Darren, and even though he's dying and not a threat anymore, he still looks threatening even as he's going out. Visual emphasis. Even though this is just a kind of teasing little last remark. The visual energy of the drawing makes this seem like a scarring, dramatic moment for Darren. And so then Darren kind of underscores how, even though he was never planning to betray Rachel, just by risking her life, it's sort of like he's already compromising his principles. He risked the Hemlock family in order to try to save Evra in a all or nothing gambit that could have gone badly wrong. So he's feeling down on himself in that he's already starting to compromise some of his principles in order to be as he's being introduced into the darker world of vampires. He's finding that surviving and defeating the evil people who want to kill our friends, it's forcing him to make tough decisions where he's not entirely comfortable making these tough decisions. So that means he kind of cuts is her name Debbie or Rachel? Debbie Hemlock. He cuts her loose because he realizes that he kind of betrayed her trust in order to save his friend, even though he wasn't planning to actually trade her to this guy in exchange for his friend, right? So that's great. So his idealism has been challenged again, and we are starting to identify with his conflict, where he doesn't want to become a corrupt person who sees human beings as lesser, who sees human beings as animals like the Vampanese. Yet he's having to make tougher decisions that aren't as easy as really simple yes or no problems. He's finding himself in tougher situations where he has to gamble with people's lives. Great stuff. So kind of a tragic story, kind of a sad story, but they survive. There's hope. Great. I'm going to keep reading this because I really enjoy it. So I want to talk about this because this is great behind-the-scenes stuff. And one of the interesting things about it is Takahiro Arai seems to work with his younger brother as well as some assistants. So a quick guide to the story of Cirque du Freak, manga version, sort of, part 3. Manga backgrounds. The backgrounds depicting a fictional world are the backbone of any fantasy manga. Thanks for all the hard work, guys, and are all asleep at their drawing tables. When it's done right, a background turns a flat piece of paper into a 3-dimensional space with real presence. It's huge! Gathering reference materials is a necessary part of creating background art. So the internet, comics, books. There are many ways to get materials, like photo books and the internet. I remember these days, but in the case of this manga, I was able to make great use of the photos I took in Scotland when I was living there as a boy. This is just kind of a really interesting East meets West thing that he was able to draw from his childhood. Scotland is one of the 4 constituent countries that make up the United Kingdom, right here. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I spent my valuable tadpole days there as part of my father's work. And he's draws himself as a tadpole as a kid. Shockingly enough, I can barely speak a word of English anymore. Oh my! I suppose I must have forgotten it when I grew my legs. Both brothers suffer amnesia. So his brother, I guess, draws himself as a little hog or something. It's unusual. There's always like some little cartoon character they depict themselves at. In fact, Darren's house back in Volume 1 was based on my home in Scotland. So draw from your childhood. Draw from your home. You don't need to set your story in Tokyo just because you like manga. You can draw from your experience to make it fresh. 200% glamorized. It wasn't this fancy though. If you hop the fence behind the house, you were in a golf course. I get all sandy playing in the bunkers. Don't follow my example, kids. Seeing the sights in Scotland is like diving into a fantasy world. It's easy to see why many famous fantasy stories, including Cirque du Freak, came from Great Britain. And their slugs are monster size. And he talks about the slugs. The sound of those slugs eating the plants in my mother's garden late at night still haunts my dreams. So childhood experiences, you kind of pull... Like, there's no scene exactly like this, but there is kind of like a sense of dread and terror throughout this whole book that I think he was able to tap into. Focus your ears in a field at night, and you'll hear some eerie noises. And there he is freaking out. In the summertime, it's still bright out until 9 in the evening, so you can actually spend the entire day playing outside. My friends and I building a secret tree fort with scrap wood from a nearby lumber yard is a dear memory I still treasure. Little bro's too small to help out. The photos we had of Scottish towns as a kid really helped me with making Volume 3. They were a great source of strength when I had just started the manga and had very little reference material to work with. I really owe my parents for taking all those pictures and keeping them. The setting sun is beautiful from this balcony of my workplace. Duh. If I had time and money, I'd love to visit Scotland again. It's a gorgeous place. So, immersing himself in the culture for the world he wants to depict of a kind of a European story that got a manga adaptation for some strange reason, drawing from his childhood experiences. Sometimes the art's a little... Like, I don't like all the facial structures sometimes. Like, even like this one, you can kind of see how there's like something odd about that eye compared to that eye. But it's just really passionate art. And it works. This is a great blast of a vampire story that I think young boys would dig. It's even got like some cool romance stuff. Yeah, it is. This is just a solid little book. And I'm going to keep reading it. And I want to call it there because I don't want to do another 20-minute video. With that, I'm number one Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Please check out my Subscribe Star. I thank my subscribers on Subscribe Star at the end of every video. I love you guys, and I'll catch you later.